Welcome to another fun video. I'm so excited to have you joining me today for this long duster. This is a really fun, easy project. You can make it in different lengths, so if the length scares you and you want it shorter, feel free. Today I want to go over the supplies I'll be using. Now, this is made in this yarn, but this yarn is sitting here because I just wanted to let you know, since this is worked with a fingering weight yarn in a white, which can sometimes be difficult to see on camera, I am going to be making my swatch with a sport weight and a different weight hook, only just for the swatch. I just want to make sure that you can see the stitches as we go. So that's what our repeat swatch rows will be in. So I'm going to make that in just a minute. But what you will need is a size F crochet hook. This is the Furls Candy Shop, and I will have that in a link. And then I loved making this with comfy fingering weight. This is a cotton blend. This is a 75% Pima cotton, 25% acrylic. I love it because it's not too heavy and it's super, super soft. Especially for something with a lot of length, a heavier weight yarn can really pull it down a bit on the shoulders, and I really like this weight for this project. You'll also need to grab a tapestry needle for some seaming, and then of course some scissors. But overall, this is a really fun, relaxing, and easy project to do this summer. So let's get started with that swatch. So in order to do the back panel, it starts off in multiples of 12 plus 1. So I'm going to be doing 24 plus 1, which will be 25 chains just for this swatch. Now here's the unique thing about this pattern is I have substituted any side chain stitches with a stacked single crochet, which means we don't have to do any extra chaining on the sides, and it makes a really, really clean edge. So we're actually going to be starting in this very, very first stitch from our hook. So the very first chain from the hook is what we will be working into. And I always like to work into those back humps. So I'll rotate it over, find that back hump, insert my hook through there. And I'm going to start by doing a stacked single crochet, which is a yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over and pull through both loops. And I know we basically just did a single crochet, but we're not done. We're going to go back into this vertical bar over here of the single crochet. We're going to go back into that, yarn over and pull up a loop, yarn over and pull through both of the loops on the hook. And that's our first stitch in this row. This is a stacked single crochet. I find it wise to mark the top of this. That way you don't like work around the edge or anything when you're coming back. And that way we also know what is the first stitch in our row. Now we're going to go ahead and, still working in that same stitch, we are going to place 2 more double crochets. So here's 1 double crochet and 2 double crochet. So we have 3 total stitches in that very first stitch. And now we are going to chain 3, skip the next 3 chains, so 1, 2, 3, and then into the next we are going to do a single crochet. And now we will chain 5, and we're going to skip the next 3 chains, so 1, 2, 3, and in that very next one we are going to do a single crochet again. So this is what we have so far. Now we are going to chain 3, skip the next 3, so 1, 2, 3, and in this next stitch we are going to be working 2 double crochets, chain 1, 2 double crochet, all into that next stitch. So 1, 2 double crochet, chain 1, and 2 double crochet again. You might find that you have a little bit of a hole right there. That's totally fine. As you kind of lay this out and block it, you'll find that it will look just okay. And then we will chain 3 and skip 3. So we're kind of repeating our repeat again. Chain 3, skip 3, single crochet, chain 5, oh, can't chain today, skip 3 and single crochet, And here comes the last part that will be at the end after you're doing your repeats, and that's to chain 3, skip 3, we have 1 stitch left, and we are going to do 3 double crochets into that last stitch. And that is row 1, so that is what gets us started. Now I just want to know we're making this swatch, like we're going to pretend like this is as wide as our back panel needs to be. And this swatch will be worked this way, of course, but what will happen when you're creating this is this will be your back panel. You're going to be doing repeats coming up here. And then after you complete your back panel, we'll come back and start working from this edge down for the front panels. The reason why I've done this is you'll notice we kind of already have this nice natural scalloping, and I wanted that to match on the bottoms of this so that when we seam down the side, the front bottom and the back bottom had that nice scalloping. So this is how it will be worked construction wise. So now we're going to go on to rows 2 and 3, which rows 2 and 3 will be the repeat for our pattern. So for row 2, into this very first stitch, we're going to do a standing single crochet, and then 2 double crochets into the same stitch. And if you have a stitch marker, go ahead and grab it and place that first stitch in the row just to make it easy on your eyes when you come back around or across. We're not working rounds here. And now we are going to do a double crochet into this very first chain space. So into that first chain 3 space, we are going to do a double crochet. And now we are going to chain 3, and into the chain 5 space, so I'm working into that space, we're single crocheting 1. And then I'm going to chain 3, and into this chain 3 space, I'm going to do a double crochet. And now into the chain 1 space, so kind of working in the center of this 2 double crochet, chain 1, 2 double crochet from the last row, we're going to repeat that. Into that chain space, we're going to do 2 double crochets, chain 1, 2 double crochets into that chain space. And now we're kind of working on our repeats here, where we're going to do a double crochet into the chain 3 space, chain 3, single crochet into the chain 5 space, chain 3, and then to end this row, we'll do a double crochet into the chain 3 space. And now we're going to do 3 double crochets in the top of that stacked single crochet, which is wise to mark it because now we know where we're placing the last stitches of this row. We'll do 3 double crochets into the top of that stacked single crochet. And now we're going to turn, and we're ready for row 3. So for row 3, it started very similarly, where we'll do a stacked single crochet into the very first stitch, no chaining required, and then 2 more double crochets, 2 more double crochets into that same stitch. And now we are going to chain 3 and single crochet into this first chain 3 space. This row is going to look somewhat similar to row 1. Get some yarn out there. And now we're going to chain 5 and do a single crochet into the next chain 3 space from the row below. And now we're going to chain 3, and in this chain 1 space, we're going to repeat what we did from the row below, which is 2 double crochets, chain 1, and 2 double crochets. And now we're going to chain 3 and do a single crochet into that next chain 3 space, chain 5, and single crochet into the next chain 3 space. And as we come to the end of the row here, we're going to chain 3. And now in the very last stitch, we are going to place 3 double crochets. And that is it for row 3. And the nice thing is that repeat is nice and easy. It's just a 2-row repeat. So you'll repeat row 2 and row 3 for as many rows needed. So you can kind of see how it's taking shape here. Notice that this is a piece, because of all the chains, it definitely needs to be blocked. I've blocked mine and it works so much better for seaming and all that stuff if you block. Now I'm going to show you the shape of this where I'm at currently, and we'll talk about how to get there in the next video clip. But you're going to be creating this back panel for the length that you want. Find the bottom of that here. So here's this back panel. You can see that we've got, if we were working this way, we still have our nice little scalloped edge going on, and it's just a 2-row repeat, so it gets quite relaxing. This is the width of the back panel for the size I'm choosing to make, which is the size small medium, but you can adjust the width of this by chaining an extra, like either chaining more or less on your beginning chain in multiples of adding 12 or decreasing by 12. I do recommend doing it in an odd number of repeats, simply because it makes it easier when you are splitting for the front. Now for the front side, we are going to be splitting it into 2 sections. That way we're leaving space for the neck, and then we are building out the 2 front panels, and then we'll do some seaming later. So our next steps are to come back to where we started. So where we started was our first chained spot. So we're going to come back to that, and now we're going to start working down the other way. So that's what we're going to be doing next. Now, when it comes to the right side or wrong side of this, if you weren't paying attention, it really doesn't matter, to be honest. Like, since this is worked in rows and the way the stitch is, it's not too big of a difference, but I like to start working the front panels by row 1 with the right side facing. So I'm going to come over here to the right side, and I'm going to attach my yarn to the very first chain stitch in this row. Just simply going to attach it by doing 1 slip stitch. And now I'm going to do a stacked single crochet as my very first stitch. And then I'm going to double crochet 2 into that same space. So we're going to be basically doing a mimic of what we did before. We're just starting to work the other way. It's still the same stitch repeats, but we're not going to be working all the way across. So now I will chain 3 and skip 3. And what's nice about this is you can already tell which one to go into, because we're just going into we're doing a mimic of our row 1 from the back panel. And then chain 5. Skip 3, do a single crochet, chain 3, and now in the next, skip 3, and in the next space do the 2 double crochets, chain 1, 2 double crochets, all into 1 stitch. So this is the same as the swatch. This is the same stitch we're still working with. We're just not going to work it all the way across. So if we look at our back panel in terms of the width of it, we have like an odd number of repeats. So we will end up leaving the center panel, like this center area, unworked to make space for the neck. And we'll only be working across one side and stopping and turning and leaving an empty space once we work panel 2. So let me show you what that's going to look like. I'm going to keep working across here in our stitch pattern repeat. So now that I've started, I've worked till the, I guess we've got our side edge where there's like 3 double crochets in each, and then we've got our 2 double crochet, chain 1, 2 double crochet into each one of these. This is a great way to visually see where we're headed. We're only going to work until the 4th one in here. So all of this will be left unworked. We're about at the halfway mark, but we're stopping short. We're going to be turning when we get to this section. And to do this, we're going to now work this as an edge, just as we did on this side, or just as we did as a hole over here. And I'm going to do 3 double crochets into that last section right there, and I'm ready to turn. And then the rest of this is simply working that same repeat. So I'm going to turn my work. And we will start with a stacked single crochet, and that counts as our first double crochet stitch. And then 2 more double crochets into that first stitch as well. And then we're going to do a double crochet into the next chain space, chain 3, single crochet into the next chain space, chain 3, double crochet into the next chain space, and then for this space we're once again going to do that 2 double crochet, chain 1, 2 double crochet, all into that same space. And keep working that repeat all the way across until the end, just like we did on our swatch. And now that I've worked to that end, I'm just going to keep repeating those 2 rows. As you can see, we kind of have this nice line that is a little bit of a division from the front and the back. That's where we're going to be possibly shaping it a little bit in the future if we want, but I love the way this is working up. It's such a fun stitch repeat. I hope you're enjoying it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to continue to repeat those repeat rows back and forth, building up this panel, which is what I'm calling my right side panel, although this can be reversible, so there's no stress about that for this garment. But I will be working this once again in a really long strip, just this section and a really long strip, and I'm going to match the amount of rows that I did here for the front panel. That way, when we go to seam, all the lengths match up. We don't want our front shorter than our back or vice versa. So we want to work the exact amount of rows that we did on the back panel for this front right panel. So I'm going to let you go work on that, doing that stitch repeat. And it's quite simple. It's definitely one to watch a TV show because it's just repetitive. And then I'll come back and we'll talk about the other panel. All right, so I have worked this front panel, the first front panel, and boy, is it long. It feels so long, especially since this is a long duster style, but I can tell you I'm in love. This fabric is really fun. It may take a little while to work out because we are working with fingering weight, but I just worked on it here and there between the park play dates and the Netflix shows. So I'm digging this fabric that we're creating. So now that we have this panel, the last panel we have to do is the other front panel. And we're going to be doing the same segment that we did here, only we're going to be starting it here. So notice I have the same side facing me as when I started this panel. I'm going to go ahead and attach my yarn to this next section over of that double crochet 2, chain 1, double crochet 2. And attach my yarn. I like to attach with a slip stitch. And now I'm going to start by working a stacked single crochet. And then in this very first spot, we're also going to be putting 2 more double crochets. So it's the same thing we did when we started over here, only for this we are starting in this spot. And now we are going to continue to do our repeat, our 2-row repeat. So the nice thing about this is we're doing this section again. We're only starting here. It's the exact amount of stitches over here, and now we're just repeating on this side. So I'm not going to cover it again simply because we just did here. It's the exact same instructions. We're only starting it in a slightly different section. So now I will continue to build this out. It will look exactly like this. Remember to do as many rows on your front panels as you did on this entire back body. So count the rows of your back body and then do the same amount of rows here. I'm going to go work on this and then I'll come back right after I get this other panel done. So last night I went ahead and blocked this lace duster. Right now it is a very, very long piece. So this is the back side, and I can't even put this whole thing on camera because I'm just going to kind of show you as I go. This is where it splits for each of the front side, and then you've got the long front side. So right now it just looks like a really, really awkward piece of fabric. However, what we're going to do is we're going to fold it in half right where these arm tops are. So right where we split, right where like the neck area is, we're going to go ahead and fold this in half. And now we can kind of see it start to take shape. Like this would be our neck area. And the last thing we need to do for this section is to seam. So this is going to be a really long seam on each side since this is such a long piece, but we want to make space for our arms. Now, this can be a preference thing. I've put, as you know, like just your generic arm depth into the pattern, but really it's up to you in what you want the arm depth to be. If you want to be a bit deeper or narrower, I would try it on, take some pins and pin it on each side where you feel that it's comfortable. And then make sure that you're matching up stitch for stitch, so row for row, that it's exactly the same, because the length of the front and the back is the same, and we want to maintain that to be the same on each side. So I would go ahead and pin it once you have it matched up on where it's going to be, and all the rows are matched up row for row. And then we're simply going to seam all the way to the bottom on each side, being sure to leave this front opening open. So go ahead and do that and seam down each side. And then after that, but the bulk of the work is done. Once you seam this, it's time to wear and enjoy.